Welcome to the Breakaway podcast, recorded on the campus of Texas A&M. For more information, check out our website at breakawayministries.org. We hope you enjoy the message.
Well, over the past year, there's been several times where I've shared about my experiences in college, and so I just figured it was only fair for me to show you some pictures from the time that I was in college so you can kind of get a feel for what life looked like for me in college. So let me just show you a few pictures. Here's the first one. This is me, my freshman year. I was at a day party. And I won like second or third in a lookalike contest for Pee Wee Herman. Does anyone know who Pee Wee Herman is? Pee Wee Herman, it was this dumb kids show where it was like, the word of the day is candy, ha ha. That was kind of Pee Wee Herman. If you don't know who Pee Wee Herman is, then what I just did won't make any sense to you. Anyway, that was freshman year. Here's the next one. This is also freshman year. This is probably one of the first and only date parties I went to as a freshman, but got invited to. This was before I was introduced to hair product, and life just got better after that. But anyway, let's go to the next one. I know you're going to enjoy seeing this one. This was, the reason that this is so important is that a few weeks ago I told you this story about dating this girl who said I could be a male model if it wasn't for my legs. This picture is clearly before that relationship because I haven't worn shorts since that relationship. And so if you ever wonder what my legs look like, that's the only time you're going to see it. That was me standing in front of my Azuzi Rodeo with my futon mattress on top of my car. Is anyone rocking the futon? Not many. Don't do it, all right? It's just not worth it. Okay, next. This is ring day for me. Day I got my ring. Yep. Yeah, it's exciting. So this was me in college, and I look back on my times in college, and I loved my time at A&M. I absolutely loved my 4 years here, and I have so many incredible memories from my time at this place. I mean, Breakaway was a huge part of my college career. I loved the football games. I have incredible memories of random road trips with friends. There was the time I dressed up as a human heart and went around campus interviewing people on camera during Valentine's. There's just some good memories of my time at college, but there's also these different memories that I have that I look back and I just have to label them. What was I thinking? Like there's these different moments and I'm not at a point yet to even share them with you guys because I just haven't gotten past the point of embarrassment yet. Like still 14 years out, I look back and I'm like, oh, why did I do that? Like what was I thinking? Like if I could just go back and talk to my college self and just be like, psh, psh, focus up. You're gonna think to do that and I'm telling you, don't do it. Like if I could have that conversation with myself, it would be a really healthy conversation. And the reason I even bring that up is I just want you to think about this. 10 years from now, 15 years from now, you're going to be looking back on this season of life that you're in right now, and you're going to have some incredible memories from it, and you're going to be like, man, remember that back in 2017 when I did that, or we went there, that was incredible. But then there's going to be these different memories that you have 10 years, 15 years from now of this season of life, and you're just going to be like, what was I thinking? Why did I wear that? Why did I date him? Why did I go there? There's going to be these different moments, and something in you is just going to think, if I could go back and talk to myself, I would hope that things would go differently. It's interesting, there's been 2 different times, probably in the last month, where someone has asked me, they've just said, man, if you could go back and talk to your college self, what would you tell yourself? And I want to share that with you tonight because we're in the middle. We're really not in the middle. We're at the end of this series that we've been calling The Good Life. And I want the good life for you guys. I want a life for you where joy is maximized and unnecessary pain is minimized. And I believe that the 3 things that I'm going to share with you, the 3 things that I would go back and tell my college self, will absolutely promote joy and minimize unnecessary pain in your life. So if you have a Bible, I want you to turn with me tonight to the end of the book of Ecclesiastes chapter 11. And if this is your first time ever at Breakaway, let me just say welcome. I'm so glad that you're here with us. We have been spending the bulk of the semester in this book, Ecclesiastes. And I would imagine that this book hasn't ever been on your radar, but what you need to know is this book is wisdom literature. What that means is it is all about living wisely. It is a book that exists to help maximize your joy and minimize your unnecessary pain. It is very practical and it is highly applicable to your life now as a college student. And we've been learning all semester from King Solomon, who's the wisest person to ever walk the face of the earth besides Jesus Christ. And it's pretty awesome because Solomon, as he writes Ecclesiastes, is old in age. He's nearing the end of his life. And right here in chapters 11 and 12, we see him turning to you guys, the next generation, the young generation, and he's going to speak a word to the youth of today. And I'm going to give you 3 key truths from Solomon that I would actually tell my college self if I could go back to 1999 through 2003 and just lovingly tell myself, do this, don't do that. Here's the first key truth you need to know. Before you follow your heart, you need a new and aligned heart. I'll say that one more time. Before you follow your heart, you need a new and aligned heart. Look at what Solomon says in Ecclesiastes chapter 11, verses 9 and 10. He says, "Rejoice, O young man, in your youth, and let your heart cheer you in the days of your youth. Walk in the ways of your heart, in the sight of your eyes. But know that for all these things God will bring you into judgment. Remove vexation from your heart and put away pain from your body, for youth and the dawn of life are vanity." And so what you need to know is in the Bible, the heart is referring to the control center of life. The heart is that which produces your feelings and your thoughts and your emotions and your motives and your passions, your desires and your resolutions. And so what Solomon is saying right here is he's simply just acknowledging the freedom that you have while you're young. He says, walk in the ways of your heart. Walk in the ways of your eyes. Your eyes are that through which you see opportunity. He's saying, walk in the ways of your heart. He's really acknowledging the freedom that you have at this point in life. Because think about it. From this day forward, you're only going to gain more responsibility. A day is coming where you might have a spouse and some kids to think about. You're going to have a mortgage and a whole other just wide range of bills that you have to pay. You're going to have health insurance premiums. And you might have a job that for some reason chooses not to recognize things like spring break, Christmas break, and summer vacation. You are only going to gain more responsibility. Your life will only get more complex from this day forward. And so what Solomon is saying is during this unique and sweet time of life where you have all of this freedom, dream big, think big, explore your passions, fail at something, and then get up and keep going. Go on random road trips. You can explore Europe with just Contents in a backpack. You can build relationships, friendships with people of the opposite sex, and then ultimately find one person and fall in love. He's saying, in this sweet season, enjoy the freedom that you have. Walk in the ways of your heart. And we like that advice. We're used to that advice. We're just used to it in a little different wording. We're used to the wording, follow your heart. Have you ever told someone that, or has someone ever told you? We like that advice, follow your heart. So, for example, if you're dating someone and you're having to choose between either marrying them or breaking up with them, which are two totally different outcomes, if you're trying to figure that out, you might seek some wise counsel, and they might tell you, well, just follow your heart. Another way of putting it is, what does your gut tell you? You don't know what you want to do with your life. Well, you know what? Follow your heart. What does your gut tell you? You're thinking about taking a break from school and just going and traveling or just figuring life out. Okay, well, follow your heart. We love this advice. There's just one small catch to this idea of walking in the ways of your heart or following your heart. Solomon gives us the catch in the latter half of verse 9. He says this, but know that for all these things God will bring you into judgment. So what's Solomon saying here? He's saying God cares about how you live right now. Yeah, walk in the ways of your heart, explore your passions, but no, God cares deeply about your passions. You know what? Dream big, but God cares deeply about what you dream. He cares about what you think. He cares about what you say. He cares about what you do. God cares deeply about how you live now. I'll never forget, years ago, I was a student pastor at a church in Austin, and there was this, yeah, I get it, yeah. So every time. So I was a youth pastor at this church in Austin, and there was this, oh my gosh, I said it again. That one's on me. That one's on me, guys. But there was this moment kind of at the end of the semester, kind of right around this time, where we gave the seniors an opportunity to address the underclassmen, just kind of share a word of advice. And I just remember this one senior guy standing up and saying, guys, I just want to encourage you to really enjoy this time in life, because this is the one time in your life you can do whatever you want and there won't be any consequences. And as he talked, I put my hand on my ear and I simply said, if you have a shot, take him out. Take the shot. Because that's just absolutely not true. That's absurd. No, God cares about how you live now. God isn't up in heaven with a bunch of rule-following angels like, yeah, but did you see that? And he's like, guys, it's the college years. This is why grace exists. It exists for times like this. No, that's not happening. God wants you to be holy now. He cares what you do now. So before you follow your heart, don't miss this. Before you follow your heart, you need a new and aligned heart. Here's why I say that. Listen to the words of Jeremiah 17, verse 9. Here's what it says. Watch this. It says, the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately sick. Who can understand it? Do you know what this means? It means if you've ever told someone, follow your heart, you might have given them crazy advice. You might have seriously done them wrong. Because for you to follow your feelings or what you want to do in the moment, for you to follow your thoughts or certain dreams, certain feelings or emotions in particular moments can actually lead you into some serious unnecessary pain. I love what one of my pastor friends says. He just says feelings are real. They're just not always reliable. And that's absolutely true. If you're going to follow your heart, you first need a new and aligned heart. See, the good news is that when you come to understand what Christ has accomplished for you on the cross, when you get your mind around the fact that the Son of God left heaven and came to earth on a rescue mission for you, when you understand that Jesus Christ, God in the flesh, went to the cross and made payment for all of your failures, was buried in a tomb, and on the third day walked out of it as a demonstration that he was victorious over your sin and mine. When you understand that, and when you receive Christ into your life, he gives you a new start and a new heart. That's what the Bible promises, that he will give you a new heart with new desires and new capabilities to live a life where God is glorified and your joy is maximized. But even when Christ gives you a new heart, this new heart has to constantly be cultivated. It has to regularly be realigned with God's heart, God's thoughts, God's desires, God's passions. Let me kind of explain it this way. I love Aggie football. I am a huge fan. Any opportunity I have to go to the game, I'm there. I love to take my wife and kids. I want my boys growing up just Aggie fanatics. That's my desire, trying to parent them in the way of the Lord, which is to go to A&M. And just parenting 101, guys. But, I was just really proud of how Trevor Knight led the team last year. I thought he did a great job. And I just want you to think about this. What if Trevor had walked onto the field? You know, the coaches are on the sidelines calling the plays. Like, the coaches have spent countless hours watching films, thinking strategically about how to maximize the potential of the team so that the team can win. But just imagine if Trevor had walked on the field and just decided, you know what, I'm just going to follow my heart. I'm just going to do what feels right. And what if he had stepped into the huddle? And if some of y'all are like, you lost me at the word huddle. Okay, just wait till I get through this illustration and we'll catch up with you later. But just imagine if Trevor had stepped into the huddle and was like, okay, guys, here's the plan. We're going to follow our hearts. We're going to do what feels good. So, offensive line, what you feeling? Don't even tell me. Surprise me. Receivers, what are you passionate about right now? Man, get after it. Running back, you going to be hanging out behind me? What are you feeling right now? Great, good, do it. Just imagine the chaos that would have happened. Imagine the circus it would have been on the field. Why? Because there is a team that has been watching film, strategically thinking about how to take the Aggies down. So just imagine the chaos that would have erupted if Trevor and the team was like, you know what feels good right now? What am I passionate about right now? Let me just follow my heart. That did not happen. No, what did you see after every play? What did Trevor do? He stepped back and he looked at the sidelines to get the play, so that he could align himself and he could step into the huddle and he could align his men with the play that the coach had called. Why? Because the coaches were out for joy. That's what they wanted for the team. The coaches were there trying to ensure that the team would win. See, the same is true for us. You know what? We have a coach who is after our joy. We have a coach who wants our joy to be maximized. But when we step into life and we just run our own play, we do what feels right, we follow our hearts without first getting a new and aligned heart, man, chaos happens. That's why our world is so chaotic. That's why so many people go through college and experience vast amounts of unnecessary pain, because they refuse to look to the sidelines. before you follow your heart, you better spend a lot of time looking at the sidelines. Aligning your heart with God's heart. Aligning your passions with God's passions. You know what it looks like to look to the sidelines? A couple things. You know how God aligns your heart with his heart? He does it first through his word. You need to know you cannot know God's ways without first knowing his word. The word of God is God's breath on a page to us. It is the number one way that we align our hearts with his. The second way that God aligns our hearts with his is through his people. He uses his people to align the hearts of his people. And we've talked about that a lot this semester. Do you have some godly men or women in your life who can consistently point you to Jesus? And man, I tell people this anytime they ask me, man, if you could go back and do college over, what would you do? Here's what I tell them, man, I would have a mentor every year of college. I would find an older man, for me, an older man who is 2 or 3 seasons ahead of me and can just sit down and unpack for me what wisdom looks like 2 to 3 stages down the road. Man, find an older man, find an older woman who will invest in you. Let me just ask you this. How often are you looking to the sidelines? If you're not reading the Bible very much, if you are not very often around godly men or women who are pointing you toward Jesus, then let me beg you, do not follow your heart. Do not do what feels best, because I guarantee you it will just lead to unnecessary pain. Now, you first need a new heart and an aligned heart with the God of the universe. You know, this is personal for me. I mean, I've shared a lot of my unnecessary pain from college with you guys, and I guarantee you so much of the unnecessary pain that I experienced, especially from dating relationships, is simply because I did what felt right instead of what was actually right. It was an alignment issue. And here's the other thing that I love to tell young men. When I was young, when I was y'all's age, you know what? My talent outpaced my character. My talent outpaced my character. People wanted to put me on a stage in ministry settings because they thought that I was talented. Here's what you need to know. Talent will get you a job. Character will keep you in that job, especially when you're talking about ministry. But my talent outpaced my character because it was an alignment issue. First key truth that I would tell my college self is, before you follow your heart, you need a new and aligned heart. The second key truth that I would tell my college self is this: today is the best day to start passionately following Jesus. I need you to hear this. Today, this day is by far, hands down, without a doubt, the best day to start passionately following Jesus. Look at what Solomon says in Ecclesiastes 12, verse 1. He says this: remember also your Creator in the days of your youth, before the evil days come and the years draw near, of which you will say, I have no pleasure in them. Solomon says, remember your Creator now. And when he says remember your Creator, he's not just saying, you know what, recall God, bring God to mind every once in a while. No, he is saying, be fully committed to God. Live for God now. So in today's terms, it's know Jesus today. Enjoy Jesus today. Walk with Jesus today. Shine for Jesus today. I remember when I was in college, I had this conversation with this guy just right outside Evans Library. And as we talked about spiritual things, he just told me, he said, you know what, I'll worry about spiritual stuff. I'll get more serious about religion, spiritual stuff later in life. But right now in college, I just want to enjoy myself. And you know what? I just mentioned that one conversation, but I feel like I've had that conversation with college students countless times. That might be where you are right now. Maybe that's exactly where you're at right now, where you're just like, you know what? There will come a day after I graduate, especially when I get married, especially when I have kids, where spirituality, following Jesus will make a lot more sense. But at least right now, I just want to enjoy myself. If that's your mentality right now, you need to know if you walk in that, you will miss the entire point and purpose of your existence. Look at what Colossians 1:16 says. I quote this verse a lot. Paul says, "For by him all things were created in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities, all things were created through him and" what? What are those last two words? And what? For him. All things, that includes you, all things were created through Jesus and for Jesus. Here's what that means. It means you exist for Jesus. I've used this illustration already once this year. I want to use it again because I don't know a better way to just unpack it for you guys, but I have my iPhone with me on stage every week, and I just want you to think about this. Your iPhone, why does your iPhone exist? Your iPhone exists to put the world at your fingertips. It's an amazing thing. Like, you can see or talk to anyone at any time through the technology of FaceTime. It exists to put the world at your fingertips. You can actually get a date without ever leaving your room. According to Tinder, one swipe can change your life. And you don't even have to leave your room. Now, the iPhone exists to put the world at your fingertips, but you can live as if the iPhone exists for a different purpose. Like, you can take it, and if you have a wobbly table, you can kind of jam it under one of the table legs to kind of even the table out. Or you can take your iPhone, you can flip it over on your table, and you can use it as a coaster if you want. You can use the iPhone for a different purpose, but that doesn't change the fact that the iPhone exists to put the world at your fingertips. And it doesn't change the fact that your iPhone will be most fully functioning and most fully alive when it is fulfilling the purpose for which it has been created. Let me tell you the point and purpose of your life. The point and purpose of your life. This is why you exist. And I'm so glad to be talking about this because some of you guys question why you exist. You ask the question, do I really matter? Do I really have meaning? Is my life really valuable? Let me tell you why you exist. You exist to know Jesus, enjoy Jesus, and display Jesus to the world around you. That is why you exist, to know Jesus, enjoy Jesus, and display Jesus to the world around you. Now, you can hear that and say, well, I don't want that to be the point and purpose of my life. And you can live as if you have a different point and purpose. You can live as if the purpose of your life is to make a 4.0. You can live as if the point and purpose of your life is to get a ring on your finger. But that doesn't change the fact that you were created to know, enjoy, and display Jesus. And it doesn't change the reality that you will be most fully functioning and most fully alive when you are fulfilling the purpose for which you were created. So if the point and purpose of your life is to know Jesus, enjoy Jesus, and display Jesus, then by far, hands down, today is the best day to start passionately following Jesus. And Solomon writes this poem in chapter 12 to just kind of illustrate the point that right now is the best time to get serious about your faith. Look at what he says in verse 2. Let's just walk through this poem. He says, before the sun and the light and the moon and the stars are darkened and the clouds return after the rain. Here's what the poem is about. It's about getting old. He's unpacking what happens as we get old. So here what he is saying is, you know what? The older you get in life, the harder life gets. More storms come into your life, and as one storm leaves, it's as if another comes. One cloudy day leaves and another cloudy day comes. You have more health issues. You have to attend more funerals. And then he goes on and says this in verse 3, in the day when the keepers of the house tremble. He's talking about our arms. When our arms get weak and begin to tremble, and the strong men are bent. What are those talking about? He's talking about our legs growing weak. And the grinders cease because they're few. What's he talking about there? Teeth. He's saying, man, they're few. You get old, they fall out. He says, and those who look through the windows are dim, bad eyesight. Your eyesight deteriorates. Verse 4, the doors on the street are shut. He's talking about your hearing begins to go. You can't hear as well. You have to ask, what? More and more. It says, when the sound of the grinding is low and one rises up at the sound of a bird. You know how early in the morning old people get up? My aunt gets up at 3:30 in the morning. That's when her day starts. It's crazy. I mean, okay. It says, and all the daughters of song are brought low. He's talking about our vocal cords grow weak. Verse 5. They're afraid also of what is high, and terrors are in the way. Man, the older you get, the more fearful of things you get. You get more paranoid about life. It says the almond tree blossoms. So almond trees were said to be pale in the springtime. He's talking about your hair going gray, turning white. The grasshopper drags itself along. There's no hop in his step. You lose energy and mobility, and desire fails. This is even talking about sexual desire fades. Because man is going to his eternal home, and the mourners go about the streets. Verse 6, he says, before the silver cord is snapped, or the golden bowl is broken, or the pitcher is shattered at the fountain, or the wheel broken at the cistern. These are all things that refer to a well. He's referring, and the well was kind of a metaphor for life. He's saying the well isn't working anymore. The well is broken and busted. Doesn't hold life anymore. Verse 7, and the dust returns to the earth as it was, and the spirit returns to God who gave it. Verse 8, vanity of vanities, says the preacher, all is vanity. He's simply saying, man, your life isn't building, it's deteriorating. It is. This is where you're headed. There is an expiration date on your life. So the best thing you can do is walk passionately with Jesus now. Remember God now while your arms are still strong, so you can go out into our city and you can serve the needy. You can love the least of these. While your legs are still sturdy and strong, you can get on a plane and you can go to one of the thousands of unreached people groups and you can spread the gospel. While you still have your teeth, you can enjoy good food. And I love good food. I talk about food a lot, not because food is an end in itself, but food is one of the ways that God shows us how he is full of pleasure and he's creative, that he would wire the universe with different ingredients to be mixed together. It shows me how good God is. You know what? While your eyesight is still strong, you can go out and behold creation. Creation doesn't just point to a creator, it tells us what the creator is like. So you can go to the ocean and look out and get a glimpse of God's love and grace for you. You think about the fact that we'll watch sharks for a week on TV. They're so captivating. It's just a reminder of how captivating God truly is. You think about the laughter of people in this room while your ears are still good and working, how contagious laughter can be and how it fills your life with joy, or the fact that music is one of the main ways people can connect with God while your ears are still good, or while your vocal cords are still strong. Don't miss this opportunity to sing passionately to the Lord. Do you see what Solomon is getting at? He's saying today is the best day to start passionately following Jesus. Let me just fill you in on how your life is going to go. Okay? For the first 10 years out of college, you're going to feel as if you just left college. For the first 10 years, you're going to feel like a recent college graduate. And then something's going to happen, like overnight. You're going to find yourself talking to a current college student, and they're going to call you sir or Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so. That's what you guys do to me, Mr. Atik. It's Reverend Atik. Thank you very much. But they're going to call you sir or Mr. And it is going to be the most like, what is happening? Like, I'm one of them. And they're like, no, you're not. You could be like my young dad. And it's like, this is weird. And it just happens overnight where you realize, man, like I blinked and now I'm in my mid-30s. A few years ago, my wife and I, we went to New York at Christmas time. And we tried to take a selfie in front of the tree in Rockefeller Center. And after we took a selfie, we did the normal thing where you take the picture and it's like, okay, let's see how it turned out. And we looked and like we were just both horrified because we saw like wrinkles around our eyes. And it was like, is that us? Like what has happened? I mean, like selfies, they're just too close for us now. And it just happens overnight. You want to know where some regret is found? It's in waking up one morning and realizing that you're in your mid-30s and still sitting in spiritual diapers. It's in waking up tomorrow and you're 35 and realizing that there's been no growth spiritually. I just want to tell you, man, you don't just wake up one day and want to be spiritually mature. You don't just wake up one day and being consistent with Jesus isn't just a thing old people do. Like you don't just stumble into that. I promise you. You're not just going to wake up one day and be like, okay, I guess I reached the age where you just like read your Bible every day. That's just kind of what you do now. That day never comes. Now, at some point, you're going to have to make a decision. If you want to read the Bible all the way through, you're going to have to make a decision that you're going to get on a reading plan and actually do it. If you want to have any type of traction or consistency with Jesus Christ, you're going to have to make a decision that He has a place on your schedule. I look back and there's some regret. I feel like my spiritual growth was stunted in some ways over the last 10, 15 years just because I didn't make the right decisions. And so I just tell you, today is the best day to start passionately following Jesus Christ. The third key truth, the last and third key truth that I would tell my college self is this: your view of God will determine your response to God. I hope you've heard me say that before. But your view of God will determine your response to God. Look at how the book of Ecclesiastes ends. I'll just read you verses 9 through 14. It says, besides being wise, the preacher also taught the people knowledge, weighing and studying and arranging many proverbs with great care. The preacher sought to find words of delight, and uprightly he wrote words of truth. The words of the wise are like goads, and like nails firmly fixed are the collected sayings. They're given by one shepherd. My son, beware of anything beyond these. Of making many books there is no end, and much study is a weariness of the flesh. Now listen up right here. Verse 13. The end of the matter, all has been heard. Fear God and keep His commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God will bring every deed into judgment with every secret thing, whether good or evil. Do you see what he said? He said, fear God and keep His commandments. This is something we should listen to, because we're talking about a book where we've just seen a lot of King Solomon's life. King Solomon was the wisest man on the earth. He was the most powerful man on the earth. He was the wealthiest man on earth. I would say he was probably the most sexually active man on earth, with 700 wives, 300 concubines. And after all of that, we get to the end, and here's what it boils down to. fear God and keep his commandments. That's what life boils down to. That's what's important. When you get to the end of your life and look back, you're not going to sit there and be like, I wish I had made more money. I wish I had done more work. No, you're going to look back and say, man, I wish I had feared God and kept his commandments more. To fear God is to stand in reverent awe of who he is. To keep his commandments is to submit yourself to all that is considered God's will. Now, that's a big vision. That's a tall task, to fear God and keep his commandments. How do we get there? Like, practically, how does that become a thing for us? It's this: your view of God will determine your response to God. So if you want to fear God, if you want to stand in reverent awe of him, if you want to be passionate about him, if you want to live your life for him, if you want it to be the desire of your heart to be pleasing to him, and if you want to keep his commandments, if you want to be surrendered to his will, if you want to have a big response to God, you first have to have a big view of God. This is how any relationship works. Just watch a guy who is head over heels for a girl. He'll do anything for her. He'll spend all of his money on her. He'll watch any Nicholas Sparks movie and be like, man, it's got a really good plot. No, it doesn't, all right? Snap out of it, dude. Sorry, ladies. But then you watch a guy who loses interest in a girl. What does he do? Man, he stops calling, he stops texting, he starts avoiding. So your view of someone will determine your response to that person. The same is true with God. So tomorrow morning, if you wake up and you have no desire to have any connection with God, you know what the problem is? You have a small view of God. If you're here tonight and there's no desire in you to fear God, if there's no desire in you to keep his commandments, I guarantee you it's because the God that you're relating to is so distant, so abstract, so irrelevant, so incompetent that honestly no one would want to have anything to do with that God. So your view of God determines your response to God. And the interesting thing is we spend all of our time focusing on the response. So if you're like I was in college, and you have experienced a lot of inconsistency in your relationship with God, I guarantee you it's because all you do is focus on the response. You know what? If I can just read my Bible more consistently, I just need to pray more consistently, I just need to not do these stupid things more consistently. You're just fixing the response. Fix your view, and I promise it will fix the response. Let me just illustrate this way. I have on stage with me a balloon, and I'm just going to preface this illustration, just say what I'm about to do will not change your life, all right? It won't. Like, I'm going to inflate this balloon, and you're not going to be like, oh my gosh, when he inflated the balloon, it was just like, Jesus changed my life. Like, that moment is not going to come for anyone here. I'm going to attempt to inflate this balloon, and I always get nervous inflating a balloon in front of a group of people because it's like, well, what if it doesn't work? So anyway, we'll see what happens. Thank you, Jesus. Okay. Here's what I want you to think about. It really does take focus and intentionality to inflate this balloon. I promise you, it does. It takes focus and intentionality to have an inflated view of God. It does. It takes effort. It takes work. It takes focus. It takes intentionality to have an inflated view of God. Now, here's where we go wrong. Here's what we want to do. And this is where I struggle too, is tying balloons. Come on. Help me, Jesus. Please don't pop. Oh my gosh, just let me have my fingers back. Here's what we want to do. We want to come to Breakaway, we want to go to Passion, we want to go to some conference, we want to read some book, and what happens is we go and it inflates our view of God. But what we want to do is we want to tie off our view of God, and we want to live off of the air that was put in to our view of God on just one night. But what happens when a balloon sits for some time? It deflates. See, your relationship with God was never meant to survive just off of the air that's breathed into it on just one day, one night. No, it takes focus and intentionality on a daily basis. Your view of God determines your response to God. Where there is a lack of intentionality, there will be a lack of intimacy. I promise you. I had an interesting day today. Our air condition is out at our house right now. And so this repair guy came over. And man, when I opened the door and just said, "Hey, how are you?" Man, it's just, he didn't engage at all. It was one of the most rude responses I've experienced just in a workman coming to the house. And so Kat and I were kind of on the same wavelength. I thought, I need to ask this guy if I can pray for him. And Kat came into my office. She was like, "You need to ask if you can pray for him." I'm like, "Yeah, I get it. I just had that thought. Like, it was my thought, not yours." That didn't happen, but. So we're trying to just get better about asking people this question: "Hey, is there anything you or your family needs that I can ask God to help you with?" And so before he left, I asked him that. And it's funny because he's like, "Why'd you ask me that?" I was like, "I just felt like I was supposed to ask you that question." He's like, "What religion are you?" I was like, "I'm a Jesus follower." "What religion are you?" "I guess I'm Christian, but I follow Jesus." He said, "Okay, well, we'll talk a little bit later." So he left, came back to my house, and as he was leaving again, I just said, "Man, are you sure there's nothing I can pray for you for?" And then he just paused and he started to open up. And we stood there for 30 minutes as he told me just about how this relationship had crumbled, and he just said, "Man, for like all of 2017, nothing has gone right in my life. I've been in trouble with the law. This thing has kind of collapsed. Stuff, just different things going on in his life." And so what I told him is I just said, he just kept coming back to the fact that there's nothing that could bring him peace. And I just said, "Man, your heart is searching for something that only Jesus Christ can give you. That's what it's searching for right now." So I just said, "Man, has there ever been a time where you have opened up your life and invited Christ in and just let him become king of your life?" Because Jesus Christ, he wants to rule and reign in your life. And he's like, "Man, I just have too much going on to do that." And I just told him, "Man, you have too much going on not to do that." And it was interesting because God put Matthew 11:28 on my heart, and that moment I just opened it up. I said, "Man, let's just read this together." Jesus says, "Come to me, all who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest." That's what you want, right? And he read that, and we talked for another minute, and he walked away. You know what the issue was for him? You know what prevented him from taking his next step from Jesus, his next step with Jesus? It was an issue with his view of God. See, his issue was he didn't believe that Jesus Christ's shoulders were strong enough to handle what was going on in his life. And so he left believing that he was going to have to shoulder it. And as I just thought about tonight, I just wondered, you know what? You know what will be the barrier? You know what will hinder your next step with Jesus? It'll be an issue with your view of him. It'll be too small of a view of him. So I just wonder for you tonight, like what will be the air in the balloon for you tonight? Like what do you need to hear? Maybe you'll make a different decision than that guy made today. And maybe you'll just hear, you know what? I'm stressed right now. I'm anxious. My life, it feels like the stuff is really hitting the fan. And I'm going to believe that Jesus Christ has shoulders that are strong enough to handle what is going on in my life. Maybe that's what you need to hear. And maybe that's going to take you to your next step with Jesus, because your view is going to be inflated and this bigger view is going to drive a bigger response. Maybe you just need to hear that God is present in your life. This was a game changer for me to come to a place where I believe that Jesus Christ is committed to being present in my life every moment of every day. He is there in the room when you wake up. Have you ever thought about that? Like when you're walking back to your dorm, he's actually walking with you. When you're driving, he is sitting right next to you. Like, what do you want to talk about? What do you want to ask me for? I care about it. I want to know. Maybe you just need to hear tonight that God is a perfect Father. And so just like a healthy child-father relationship, you don't have to be good enough for him. You don't need to earn his approval or favor. You already have it because you know Jesus Christ. Christ has brought you into the family of God, and now you have a perfect Father who lavishes upon you his love, his acceptance, his approval, his care, his delight in you. Maybe you just need, for you, maybe the air in your balloon is going to be the fact that you don't have to be perfect because Jesus Christ has already been perfect for you. Like, can we just quit this game of perfection? Can we just rest in the fact that you'll never be perfect? And that's actually a good thing because it reminds you of your desperate need for the only one who has ever been perfect, that's Jesus Christ. Or maybe you need to hear this, and this might be tough love for someone in the room tonight, but maybe you just need to hear that Jesus didn't come so that you can just do what you want. And I did say that in love, but maybe for you it's realizing Jesus didn't come so you can just do what you want. You know what? God still hates sin. He hates it so much that he had to crush his son with his wrath to save us. And a day is coming where we will stand before him and have to give an account for how we've lived. And so maybe for you, it's just understanding, you know what, God does care about how I live now. And the reason Jesus came was not just to get me into heaven. He came to give me a new heart so I can live a different life. One where God is glorified and my joy is maximized. I want the good life for you. I want your joy to be maximized. I want unnecessary pain to be minimized. This is where it comes. Before you follow your heart, you need a new and aligned heart. Today is the best day to start passionately following Jesus, and never forget your view of God will determine your response to God.